Okay, cool. So let me explain the concept of the super loop. I quite often work towards like a super loop, and I usually use two super loops, one for the breakdown and one for the drop. And this typically is a concept where I build out as much as I possibly can in one loop, and then I make a quick play later to arrange it out. So for the first bit, I'm gonna be working on one loop, and I'm gonna be stacking as much as I possibly can into one loop, and then knowing that when it hits the point of where it's a little bit over the top, right where it hits that like turning point where it's just a little too busy, that's the point where I'm gonna consider it finished, assuming that I'm happy with every single sound. Then later when I arrange, I could take all those things and factor in automation and spread those things out across the track, and I can build out a track really quickly, knowing that every single element I use in the super loop is gonna work together and be compatible, because at one point they were birthed all right next to each other and getting along just great, which means that then I can spread it all over the track, and then I just gotta focus on filling out the track with automation and ear candy as well. So this will be done for the build-up, the drop, or this would be done just for the drop and just for the musical breakdown. So two. I think in a club song like this, we're gonna want to have a breakdown, a build-up, and a drop. The build-up is gonna be a mix of the breakdown and the drop, so we can use elements from both of those and mix what sounds right, and then the addition of like drums and stuff like that. And we're gonna work kind of without drums, by the way, for this musical section. I wanna lay out as much of the track as I can without even factoring in drums. And I think that's a weird way to work maybe for some people, but for me, it just is what works, because I know my drums are gonna be 4/4 in a track like this, so I'm not really stressing that so much. So let's get into the super loop. Right out the gate, I have this progression. I kinda don't really think I'm gonna use this, at least right here. I think for a club track like this, at least I'm trying to put myself into the place of where I want this track to be presented, and mentally, I want a track. I've been DJing a lot lately, and I feel like I have enough of the melodic stuff. I need a little bit more of the aggressive. That's kind of cool. Let's throw that in here. That's not the main idea, but it's something that we can use. Whoa! Then we got an acapella. Musical. And this is just a random box. Anytime I hear anything, I'm like, damn, that's hot. I press 1 and it ends up in this folder for a situation like this. That's useful. That's cool. Let's try that. Let's throw that in. We might mess with that. Just kind of building a little. That's pretty cool, but I don't know if that's what we want. Let's throw that in here. That's hard. That could be like a cool little break or fill. That's a W. Let's throw that in there. That's kind of like a war horn. Gives me a vibe. I've used that before. Okay, now we're getting into some more aggressive stuff. I like these. I think these could be cool. They're not really as aggressive as I would like, but let's give it a shot. So when you open up a MIDI track and you double click a sample to drop it right into the simpler, which is Ableton's simple sampler. And we need to tune this. If we're playing in E minor and you press C, it's gonna play back the note at E minor when you press C, which is not accurate. So we go over here to transpose, and we're gonna move it down 4 steps, which takes it from E, D sharp, D, C sharp, and C. And we have to make sure it's a minor sample, so E minor, EM stands for E minor. If it's a major chord, it's probably not gonna sound the way we intended. I kind of said that we're gonna be in D minor, and the reason I chose D minor is I tend to find that that is one of the more aggressive keys for where bass sits. And I can kind of quickly explain that by opening up a basic serum patch. And what I find is that D minor, let me get like a little sub or something like that. And let me open up a spectral analyzer. And what I find, let's take the scale off, is D hits pretty nice on a subwoofer. With a clean sub like that, it sounds pretty cool. If I go down any lower than C, C works, but the problem with that is if I decide to go up or down a note, or down a note to B, it starts to get a little close to that line where it's really low. Typical subwoofer goes down to like maybe 30 hertz, right? In a big room, you could probably get down to like 20, 22. The lowest the human can hear is about 20 hertz, if I'm not mistaken. Well, we technically feel it, we don't hear it, but the lowest speakers can go is 20 hertz. So I don't want to go super, super low here. Opened up the spectrum on the wrong channel. And that puts us at, where is that? That puts us at 35 hertz, D, which is, or C, I'm sorry. And D puts us at around 40, I'm gonna say. This is not stuff I'm normally thinking about, but I just want to give you an explanation as to my decision here. Yeah, 37 hertz. That's pretty low, but I think most subwoofers in cars can cover that, and I think that's going to be pretty cool. So I tend to go D, D sharp, E. I tend not to go past G. I think subs sound kind of weak there, and I'll give you an explanation on that. Then it's like, that's just not the vibe. That could work for like a more melodic track, but for me, I'm trying to do a one-note drop, or maybe just a note or two, where I kind of keep it very mono. And yeah, let's move with that. That's my explanation on that. Cool. So we got this rave stab in here. Let me get it to play. Solo it. Ooh, I like that. So that's coming in at C. That's D right there. Let's see how that feels. Let me mute these things, or let me just solo the vocal rather. Close this. Another way you can tune samples too, by the way, is you can use the Ableton tuner. But that doesn't always work. I tend to find looking at the fundamental frequency helps. And yeah, there's C right there. You can make sure you tune that way. Kind of going through this, assuming that you have no musical theory knowledge, because I so relate to people that are trying to make music that don't really know a lot about music theory. So I'm trying to, keep that in mind as well. Because I remember being there. I had to like take the time to learn it, and it helped a lot. But
get your ass up.
Okay, I kind of like that. If I go to one-shot mode, when I let off the keyboard, it'll ring the sample out. If I have classic mode on, as soon as I let off, it's going to stop, which tends to not be good in this case.
Get your ass up.
Too fast, maybe.
Get your ass up. Get your ass up, and let's get.
I think we can go a little bit more aggressive. But I like the idea of using a rave stab. And if you notice, that inspo box led me to that idea. So now I can search for a better idea within that. So let's just pick a random one. That's nice. Let's use that. So we're in F sharp, F, E, D sharp, D, C sharp, C. Now we're good. Now we're getting somewhere. And notice how the tuner randomly decides it wants to work this time. Yeah.
Get your ass up. Get your ass up.
Cool, now we're getting somewhere. I tend to find that with songs that I want to be more aggressive, this little half step movement is where it happens. If I go to the scale and I type minor, if I press minor on, you're going to notice that's technically out of key because we're technically working in not minor scale when we do that. We're working in, I believe, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, but we're working in this scale right here, Phrygian dominant. Tends to be. But if I go up there into these notes, it's going to sound weak. And if I play a melody in this scale, it can tend to sound a little bit like Egyptian, which is a little odd. So we're just going to try to stick to two notes. Minor being the fact that, yeah, I tend to find that it starts to sound a little too musical. When I go there, it tends to be a little jock jams, a little less club and like modern. So let's stick to that half step movement right here. Or one semitone movement rather.
Get your ass up. Get your ass up and let's get ill. Get your ass up.
That's cool.
Get your ass up and let's get ill.
Cool.
Get your ass up.
See how that feels?
Get your ass up and let's get ill. Get your ass.
I already like that. Now we're getting somewhere. So let's incorporate some of these new sounds and see if they work.
Get your ass up.
I like that. It's like a background element. We can check the tuning on that really quick with the spectrum.
Get your ass up.
It seems to be sitting in a good spot, but you can kind of see. And that's an E, that's in key. We can try going down one just to see if it sits on that half step. I don't like that as much. Let's go background. And then we have this vocal, which we're not going to use right now. Let's save that on the side. And then we have this thing here, which is playing an E flat according to the sample there. Let's pitch that down to D. So E flat. That's a D sharp, so we only have to go down one step. Let's see how that feels. I like that. That's cool. And let's put that here, so that's kind of a layer. Very cool. Now we're kind of in a dark spot, but it feels aggressive and not so moody, which I kind of like. Cool, now we have a basic idea. I feel like the vibe is there, and we're off to the races. Let's go to the next lesson, and let's build this out completely.